And today we're going to talk about why hybrid working isn't working. So we got a great guest speaker lineup. So hopefully they can help us with some solutions to fix the, so we have a frictionless workplace experience. So just before we get started then, a few housekeeping rules. It'd be great if you could submit your questions in the Teams Q&A or in the chat. We have muted everyone, so basically there's no background noise today. We've also turned off your cameras to save on bandwidth, and we'll be sending out this recording in around 48 hours, so we'll try and get that out to everyone as quick as possible. And then quickly looking at the agenda, what you'll walk away with today. So we're first going to look at the hybrid workplace trends and get a Microsoft Teams update. Then we've also got Thomas here, and he's going to be doing a live demo. We're going to be going through the Appspace app embedded in Microsoft Teams. Then we have Metrikus, who are going to be taking us through creating a smarter and safer workplace. And then kind of wrapping it up, we've got Accenture, and they're going to be telling us how they glue all these solutions together. We will have time for a bit of Q&A and wrap up at the end, 10 minutes roughly. We aim to get you out of the webinar within 1 hour. I know it's Valentine's Day, so you might have to rush off for dinners or buying presents for loved ones, etc. So we'll try and make sure you get out on time. And then, as mentioned today, we got some great speakers, so really looking forward to this webinar. So today we have Sindhu, who's Senior Product Manager from Microsoft. We also have Michael from Metrikus, who's co-founder and COO, sorry. We also have Harry from Accenture, who's Senior Manager. And we also have Thomas from Appspace, of course, who's Chief Innovation Officer. So that is the speakers for today, and I'm Josh, and I'm going to be your webinar moderator. So to get us underway, I'm going to now hand it over, or Sindhu, if you could take control, that'd be great, of the slides. And
Great. Thank you, Josh. Hi, everyone. I'm Sindhu. I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft and Teams platform team within engineering. I basically engage with strategic partners like Appspace to build collaborative apps in the Teams ecosystem. So I'm really excited to talk to you more about hybrid work and collaborative apps and the role that they play in this space. So we're very much past the idea that hybrid work is coming. It's here. And the focus really now is for leaders to meet the needs and preferences of their employees. In the work trend index that Microsoft published, surveying more than 30,000 workers, which I highly recommend you everyone to take a read. What was really interesting was that 73% of the employees say that they need a better reason to go into the office rather than just company expectations. So employees have a new worth it equation. And to ensure it's worth it, we need the right tools and enhancements and processes to make it work. And at the same time, that's the employee perspective, and the leaders, 85% or a percentage of leaders are saying that shift to hybrid work has actually made it challenging to have confidence in employee productivity. So, I think a large part of this is around flexibility. I think flexibility is a key part of the worth it equations. And it's more about like what employees are willing to provide, as i.e. whether it's their time or intellect or skills in exchange for money, benefits, or other things that make going into work worth it. So whether it's collaborating with those outside your organization or giving employees the flexibility to work where, when, and how they want, these tools and processes that companies introduce to address the new expectations people have for the workplace is really key, because it's all about how are we enabling them to do empowered work versus always on work. So at the same time, completely cognizant that business leaders need to reconcile these demands with the economic realities of doing business. As some organizations use technology to track activity, rather than impact, employees sort of lack the context on how and why they're being tracked, which can again undermine trust or lead to productivity theater. The paradox, that can in turn lead to productive paranoia, where leaders fear that that there's lost productivity is basically due to employees not working, even though the hours worked and the number of meetings and all the other activity metrics have increased tremendously in the last due to the COVID pandemic and the different work practices that have come in place. So the return to the office, I think, has been a struggle at many organizations, like with some employers rolling back plans after one size fits all policies have really failed to generate a great return. So I think now is really how can leaders inspire people to prioritize in-person time together? Like the data shows that, people come in for each other to recapture what they miss, whether it's the social connection of being with other people. So in other words, rebuilding social capital can be a powerful lever for bringing people back to the office. So what we really want to avoid is remote or hybrid or office, everyone just sort of like the same type, and it's really about how are we enabling that flexibility. And I think this is where Microsoft can help. We have our own hybrid workforce, we make tools for other companies that have hybrid and remote teams, and we know that our customers are using Teams every day. But at the same time, don't always realize what's possible with the Teams platform and how those tools can help with many of the challenges around hybrid and remote productivity, communications, and workflows. We use the word collaboration, collaborative apps quite a lot. And the way I see it is, collaboration can range from like one-off to ongoing, from asynchronous to synchronous across all modalities of human communication, and have goals that range from productivity to social, from targeted communication to just serendipitous ones. And I think this is where Teams platform with partner integrations provide the ability to match team goals and the way they want to work with technologies and practices. So whether it's whiteboarding in a meeting or apps pinned in channels, it's all about how are we, it's really about enabling as many inclusive scenarios as possible that allow users to traverse seamlessly in hybrid way of working. And more and more organizations are turning to Teams precisely for this. We have over 270 million monthly active users, and Teams has become a place where hybrid work works. So we have the Teams App Store with thousands of collaborative apps that enable users to get their job done in the flow of work. Not only does this make it easier to get started right away with customers, but it reduces, insight gaps, costly overlap, or any security issues. For example, we have GitHub and Teams that makes it, easier to view and share and discuss code at any time, pull requests. And today we'll hear more about how Appspace are enabling workspace management very smoothly in Teams as well. And majority of these are easily integrated via a simple API. So we made it really effortless to bring partner solutions into the platform. And that's why we've seen a month-on-month growth in the usage of partner apps and custom-built solution within the Teams ecosystem. So in summary, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to think of something you can't do in Teams, thanks to the extensive connectivity you can achieve with partner apps and the M365 ecosystem. And the benefit really just speak for themselves, whether you're leveraging from real-time nature of Teams using Graph API calls, or whether you're bringing apps into meetings. Our strategy at Microsoft is very much Teams first, where you can extend Teams apps and capabilities into the wider M365 ecosystem, whether it's extending your apps from Teams into Office or hooking into the various integration points with Viva. It's very much central to that strategy. So it's not just for development teams. In terms of building on the platform, we really democratize the access to it by making it very easy to build and roll out. And that's why we're seeing partners turning more and more to build apps and teams for enabling customers to get their jobs done very easily. So now I'll hand off to Thomas, who will showcase how Appspace have leveraged the Teams platform to build high-value scenarios for their customers.
Thank you, Sindhu. Appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I decided to go slide-less. So I'm going to go right into a demo. I'll leave the slides to the rest of my peers on this call. So I'm Thomas. I lead product innovation at Appspace. I'm going to be introducing the Appspace app embedded in Microsoft Teams. Before, just a few words around Appspace. We're the SaaS company, around 450 people globally, headquartered out of Dallas in the US. We work with most of the Fortune 500 companies. This new app for Microsoft Teams is an awesome opportunity for large organizations to scale up Appspace across their organization. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'll share my whole screen. So hopefully, can I get a thumbs up? You can see my screen? Yep. All right. Awesome. Yep. Thanks. All right. So this is the Appspace app embedded in Teams. You can see it here on the left. This icon can be personalized to your own brand if you want to name the app. The Appspace app for the employee app exists as a Teams embedded app, but it also exists as a web app. It exists as, and I'm going to bring my phone for this, it exists as an iOS and Android app, and it exists as an embedded app for the Teams mobile client as well. So as you can see here, I've got all the options for my employees. There's also an Outlook add-in that's available that I'm going to show right away. So as you can see here on the right, there's Appspace Places, which lives and breathes inside Outlook. So really, employees have the choice on how they actually want to use Appspace. But what we're seeing is, for the sake of user adoption and scale, embedding Appspace directly into Microsoft Teams makes total sense. This is where most of us live and breathe nowadays, to chat, to collaborate, to communicate. And therefore, anything that has to do with workplace should also exist in Microsoft Teams. The Appspace app does much more than just booking a desk or booking a room. It's really your workplace communication app. So I'm here logged in as a user. The app can be localized in your preferred language. I'm welcomed back in the app. I'm right now in Costa Rica. It's 10:14 a.m. for me. My default home location is our Tampa office. I can see and find out more information related to the Tampa site, eventually look where it's located on the map if I'm traveling there. And then as you can see here at the top, I've got a broadcast. I've been cleared to enter and work from the Tampa site. So the first piece about this whole return to the office and hybrid workplace is communicating with your users what they're entitled to do, when they're allowed to come, what they're going to be able to experience when they're in the office. So here in this broadcast, I can see that I've been authorized to enter the Tampa site. I can read through additional information, and I can even watch a video that describes the new office setup and make sure that I'm familiar with the venue even before arriving on site. Below that is a hero banner, and then there's some featured content, important information that are relevant to the workplace. For example, there's an upcoming company town hall that I'm going to be able to watch live in the app or watch live in the office. There's a speaker program that's available. There's an IT issue that has been broadcasted, all important information to the hybrid workplace. And then below that, there's a chronological news feed of channels as I'm subscribed to as a user. For example, there's the upcoming WOW 2023 Appspace conference. There's the New York Marathon that we're sponsoring as an organization, and more important information that's always tied to that hybrid workplace. So as a user, I have access to all of that, even without having to physically be in the office. If I go back on the right side, I also have my upcoming reservations. So for today, I have a building pass. As you can see, that reservation is in progress. And for tomorrow and the upcoming days, I have visits planned into the Tampa site. Below that are some app shortcuts to productivity services that are important. If I'm part of the sales organization, I may need to access Salesforce. If I'm a standard employee, I can access SharePoint, but I can also access payroll data or my HR portal as an organization. Now let's get into the nut of workplace management. In the employee app, and I'm going to go to the mobile client just to show you that feature parity is across both the desktop and the mobile Teams client. So here I'm on the mobile client. You can see my broadcast that we just saw a minute ago. I can scroll down and navigate my important feature at hybrid workplace communication, and then I can scroll and see the chronological news feed. I can react and celebrate any of the posts that I find useful. Now the navigation on the Teams mobile client, because the Teams navigation is at the bottom, we've actually moved the navigation on the mobile client here to the top, and I can access all the Appspace app features. Users will have the access to different features based on their needs. In my case, I actually want to plan for a visit into the Tampa location. So I'm going to click Workspaces. I can either go ahead and book a building pass and say I want to book one of those buildings and request access to a building, or look for a specific workspace. I can search, for example, in the Tampa site and use filters to say I want on the space. Oops, sorry, I clicked too quickly. I want filters. And I may want to look for a workspace on a specific floor or in a specific neighborhood, or maybe I want a different type of workspace, such as, for example, a meeting room. And what type of meeting room do I need? Maybe a simple standard meeting room. And then I want a room that has a specific type of amenities, maybe a Microsoft Surface 2S or an MTR endpoint. I then click Apply, and this will show all the available workspaces that match my needs on either a floor plan or a list view. So as you can see here, I can zoom in. Oops, sorry. I can zoom in and look for a meeting room that matches my needs. Now let's go back to the desktop client for a second. Same exercise here, go to Places. I can view my preferred location, use the filter to narrow down my search. Maybe I also want to see where colleagues are going to be sitting. Click Apply. It's going to show me all the available resources that match my criteria. And then if I go to the map view, I can actually see the floor plan, zoom in. I can see where a colleague may be located. So for example, here, I see that Christopher Moffat is working all day from the office today, and he's located on Hot Desk FL1, and I can go ahead and book a desk next to him and just go through a quick reservation process. As soon as I make this reservation will show up in the Appspace app in the Reservations tab. I will receive a Microsoft Teams notification in chat or activity, and I will see that reservation also showing up in Outlook. So as a user, I'm aware at all time of any upcoming reservations. I can manage my reservation and select, for example, the reservation I just created, modify it, or cancel it. When it's time for me to check in, a check-in button will appear. I can either check in from the app or check in on a device in the office like a desk puck or a scheduling panel outside the meeting room. I can also use the app to see which colleagues are actually coming into the office and select a month view and just scroll down and see all colleagues that are coming in. So that helps me make sure that I actually come on the days where my peers are going to be there. As an employee, I can also go ahead and invite visitors. I can make an invite an external or an internal participant. They will receive an email invite. They will have to complete any prerequisites or pre-registration process. And as a host, I will be kept informed of their registration status, both in the employee app and through Microsoft Teams notifications. I can also, if I have concierge permission, that means the permission to manage a certain number of workspaces and the ability maybe to take those reservations away from move users around, or if there are catering orders that were placed or AV services set up that were placed, I'm actually going to be able to see them, and I'm going to be able to manage them directly from the Appspace app. So depending again on your role within the organization, you will see some of those features or not. So this is really granular and set based on user profile. There's also my app section where I can have all the productivity services that I want to access. So look at it as Microsoft Teams being the front door to your workplace experience, and Appspace is one step further in the process, and any workplace services that make sense will be able to be accessed directly from the Appspace app. Again, that same app that's also available in your browser or as an iOS or Android app on your personal device. So as you can see, the Teams app is one app that encompasses all the workplace communication side of to the hybrid workplace, but also provides you with the services to manage your reservation into the workplace. Some of our customers have started using the product for more than it was initially built. For example, if I go into my Tampa site, you probably noticed when I pulled up the map that I have a shuttle service. I can go actually from the Appspace app book a shuttle service. So for example, here I'm booking the front seat on the campus shuttle, and I can see the different schedules that are available, and I can go ahead and make a reservation for that. That will book that seat for me in the shuttle service. So when I go back to the map view now, you'll notice how my avatar shows up here, and you can see my reservation. I'm on the 10:30 to 11 a.m. shuttle between two buildings. So you can book and reserve anything from the Appspace app, whether those are desks, rooms, lockers, shuttles, and many more. If you're booking a meeting room, it's typically an O365 resource. If you're booking anything else, it's an Appspace resource. But for the end user, it's totally transparent. What you're booking is an Appspace resource, and the permissions and rules are applied in the Appspace hybrid calendar. The next big thing is when you actually arrive in the physical workplace. As a visitor, you're going to be greeted with a visitor kiosk. So I'm just going to quickly toggle to the admin side before I end my demo. And as you can see here, I'm in the admin, I've got a visitor kiosk. So I'm going to pull the visitor kiosk. So this is what a visitor sees when they arrive at the reception. They may be a touchscreen at the reception desk, and they're going to be able to come in, and this is going to be a live preview. If they pre-register, they will have a QR code in their calendar invite. They'll be able to present the QR code here, or they'll be able to manually check in using touch. So they'll be able to go with a touchless experience or a touch experience, depending on what their preference is. So the journey doesn't end in the employee app in Teams. It also expands into the physical workplace when you arrive. So we have an app that will run on your visitor kiosk, on your digital signs, on your wayfinding kiosk, where the same wayfinding map will be available in devices in the office, and on meeting rooms. Now, in the next part of this webinar, I'm going to pass it over to Michael from Metrikus, who will talk about IoT and workplace insights into Appspace. What does that mean? Well, for example, if I'm planning to go into the Tampa site, I'm going to be interested in certain workplace insights, such as the air quality of the building, of a floor, of a neighborhood, or the room temperature of a specific workspace. So I can actually book that workspace based on my preferences. But also when I arrive in the office as a visitor or as an employee, and before I even enter a workspace, I will be presented with workspace insight to ensure that I feel safe entering a workspace because the air quality is good and the office is not saturated, so people capacity is managed. So the next section of this webinar is how, by combining workplace insight data to Appspace space reservation data in our Teams embedded app, you provide an optimal employee experience. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Michael.
Yep, Thomas, just quickly, we have a few questions in the chat for you. So I thought while you've got your demo environment up, maybe be easier to handle these questions now. And then obviously we'll let Michael continue with his part. Yeah, sure. So I have a question here from Nicholas. By leveraging the embedded Teams app, do team chat notifications happen automatically? So I think it's around...
You can configure notifications to happen, and you can have Teams chat notifications, you can have email notification and app notifications. So you have different levels of notifications, and as an administrator, you can configure those to make sure your users are notified in the right way.
Excellent. And then another question from Ted says, can you speak to role-based access controls?
Yeah, so in the Appspace admin console, you can create and manage your users. Users that log into the app for the first time through Microsoft Teams will be added into Appspace. We integrate with Active Directory, so we support SAML, so users will be added to the right user groups in the admin console and provided with the right users and permission. So when users show up in the Appspace platform, you can then go into the hybrid calendar and access all the resources, buildings, floors, however you want to configure that. And you can take, for example, an O365 room like this Albuquerque, set different permissions, which users can book this workspace, or even better, create specific rules, which users can book which room on specific days, for example, and you can start setting up different rules per user groups or individual users or locations. So as you can see, you can start creating different rules. So we also integrate with building management access control systems. So if you have a badge, when the user will scan their badge at the entrance of a building, a floor, or a neighborhood, the badging system will query Appspace to confirm that user has a valid reservation and will only grant access to that workspace based on that confirmation from Appspace.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, please, everyone, just keep on putting your questions in the chat. We'd love to answer them for you. Okay, so now it's over to Michael. So I believe, Michael, your slides are with me.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, let me take back control. Let's share those. Okay, let's get the slides up. And let's get to your point.
I think I've taken control already, have I?
Yeah, you've taken. So you're going through. So you
Sorry
do have
about that.
No worries, it's okay.
So everybody, hello. Following on from what Thomas said, let me just scoot through here. Following on from what Thomas said, Metrikus is a software as a service business and platform as a service business. We integrate with lots of different applications, obviously including Appspace, which is a really important one for us. But we've integrated with other different software platforms. So we've integrated with Microsoft Dynamics Field Services and Power Apps and other applications. But importantly as well, over 40 different hardware partners in the built environment, but not only IoT sensors, as you can see here, but also desk and meeting room bookings, Appspace being one of those, but also building management systems. And the reason we exist and what we do day to day is we aggregate data from lots of different other platforms, whether they're hardware or software, and we bring those into the Metrikus platform. It sounds quite easy, but actually it's quite hard to do, because what you need to do when you get all of that data to be able to give it to someone like Appspace to use for a frictionless experience for employees is you need to aggregate the data, you need to normalize the data, and then you need to make it analysis ready. So we do that in Metrikus, and then you take the data either via our API out to an application like Appspace, or you use the native app. But looking at what we're doing with Appspace and our joint customers, which I'll come on to very soon, is we're providing data that other people don't need to know where it comes from and don't need to worry about where it comes from, but provides the end user experience that Thomas was talking about. So how do we do that? We enable frictionless experience in 3 different ways, and we're doing this already with Appspace. This list continues to grow as we work together and we get requirements from customers and also new applications from partners like Accenture and Microsoft. So we surface real-time data or near real-time data from sensors, and we do that to push it into digital signage. Some of that might be, as already mentioned, through indoor air quality. Post-COVID, no one really thought or cared about indoor air quality prior to COVID. Some people did, but now everyone knows what it is, and it is really important, and people are worried about that. So surfacing that data in Appspace before you even get to the office, you can see it. So we can push that out through digital signage or straight into the app. And then you have preferences. So when you're going into the office, where would you like to sit? Do you want to sit somewhere based on noise, based on temperature, based on lighting? You can have all of this information in the app, and you can have that before you go. And obviously, the more you go to an office to do the work and the collaboration that you're doing in offices now, the more you'll get to know where you like to sit. But before you get there, you want as much information in your hands as possible. And then the alerts. So something I'll show on the next slide, but really importantly, giving more and more data to people who need it and can use it, whether it's the here and the now data or the analysis of that data post being in the office, it's hugely important. One of the other things that's happening now, and again, this was mentioned just before with Thomas, was when people come to the office, when they walk into a meeting room, if you're anything like me, I forget to do the check-in, I forget to do the checkout, I forget all of this. With taking the data from the occupancy and capacity sensors in buildings, bringing it into our platform, and then pushing it out to the Appspace application, I can just walk into a meeting room. Now, the sensor doesn't know it's Michael that's walked into the meeting room, but when someone walks into the meeting room at 4 o'clock today, when this meeting and webinar started, that will automatically check me in. Now, there is a bit of a flaw there. Was it Michael? Was it not Michael? Because the sensors are all GDPR compliant, but you can be checked in. But at the same time, if I don't turn up in 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the setting the customer would like to use, if nobody walks into that room, instead of that resource being marked as busy, that resource can be freed up, and then it can be available in Appspace again to book. So auto check-in, or if you don't turn up, that resource gets freed up, which is really important. Especially meeting rooms are still pretty scarce, but more and more companies are redesigning their floor spaces based on the data that you're getting from platforms like Metrikus and Appspace, and that analytics that's being done like for companies like Accenture. And then the space utilization, as I've just mentioned, that the analytics of meeting rooms and spaces is now more important than ever. Everyone knows post-COVID and post-lockdown and back to the office, how are spaces being used? That space utilization and understanding how many desks are being used, how collaboration spaces are being used, how many meeting rooms are being used, and are those meeting rooms of the right shape and size? Because we work with a lot of finance companies, banks and other institutes. They have very large meeting rooms, and they always have. Now, we can tell you, I can tell you now without having some of the data in front of me, that a lot of those meeting rooms are underutilized, as in not 8, 10 and 12 person meeting rooms are never really used to their capacity. So you can either break those up and have lots smaller meeting rooms, or you can completely change the spaces. But having access to that data, whether it be in Metrikus or whether it be in Appspace or whether it's via the API, is hugely important for people to understand. So the data aggregation point is key, and people don't want lots of interfaces to log into anymore. You don't want to have to log into a room booking system, and then you don't want to have to log into parking, or you don't want to have to log in to see the indoor air quality or how busy the building is. You want all of that in one space, and that's what Appspace allows you to do, and that's what the integration of the Metrikus platform and all of those data points being aggregated allows you to do as a user and as a business. And more of those integrations are happening for more and more ease of use or ease of experience for people coming back to the office. Because I know lots of people are trying to say it's back to the office 5 days a week, but there is resistance. So removing that resistance, giving people a single pane of glass and giving people the data where they need it and when they need it is hugely important. One of the last pieces, which is our partnership in action, and this is three-way actually. This is Appspace, Accenture, and Metrikus. We're working with a large global pharmaceutical company, and one of their key objectives over the next 5-10 years is employee health and well-being. As well as a great experience, they really want to take care of the people in the office when they get there. They want them to know they have good indoor air quality. They want them to know when there's a productive environment in a meeting room. So what we're doing is we're aggregating data from the occupancy sensors and the indoor air quality data, and we're able to post messages like this one to be able to say the CO2 levels are getting high, and then we can give people a nudge to say open the door and let in some outside air from outside the meeting room. We will get to a place of automation with Microsoft Appspace and Accenture down the line, but for now it's a nudge to say open the door to the meeting room. But also importantly, when the CO2 levels are high, that meeting room or that resource you can't book. So that's really important. You don't want people to be able to book meeting rooms where the indoor air quality is not great for productivity. Just so people are aware, an anecdote we tend to use, which is, I'm Australian, but the beer is the same in every language, I think. 1,000 parts per million of CO2 is the equivalent of 2 pints of beer, so 2 600ml glasses of beer. So it does really have an effect, and the higher that is, the more it impacts people's ability to think, and different parts of your brain are affected by the high amounts of CO2. On the flip side of that, when the room indoor air quality drops to a good level, that resource is then automatically available again to book in Appspace. So people don't have to think about it. The team running the building don't have to think about it. The resource is either taken out of service or added back into service based on the thresholds that are set. Now, those thresholds can be set by the customer. We generally follow the WELL standard or the air-rated air score standards, but you can set those as a customer yourself. So that part is already automated, so you don't have to do anything manually. So more and more of this is happening, and more of this is done. You can't do this on your own. Metrikus and Appspace have a great application and a joint offering, but you need data and you need people to understand your workplace, and you need people to understand how you're wanting to use your workplace and what you're doing with it. So on that, I will hand over to Harry, who will cover this off and talk in more detail about it.
Yeah, just quickly, Michael, got a few questions in the chat. Maybe it's worth handling some of those now, just while you're talking about that, about the subject. So I have a question. Sorry, Harry, I know all the presentations are linked and connected.
No problem.
So yeah, I have a question from James in the chat. I guess by understanding who is where and when, this data could save energy by feeding into heating, cooling, and ventilation systems. Is that have you ever seen a use case or possibility of that?
Yes, and James would ask this question, but it is exactly where we're going together and what we're doing with Appspace, Accenture, and Microsoft. So understanding, so as well as running buildings more efficiently now, being able to shut a whole floor down or shut an area down when it's not in use is really important. What it saves on your carbon footprint, it saves on energy, which is then saving on costs and doing the right thing by the planet. So more and more automation is coming. An example of this is what we're talking to another customer of ours is, as everyone knows, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when people are in the office. But if people do come in Monday and Friday, talking about shutting down floors and not giving people the ability to book resources via Appspace is where we're going. So not only can you shut the plant down, you can also stop people booking, and people will start to understand, if it might be a little bit frustrating to start with, the reason that those bookings can't be made is because the companies are trying to save on energy and carbon and costs. So it's hugely important. That is coming, and more automation in that space is coming.
Yeah, and then another question I have, what is an example you've seen of how IoT, Internet of Things, data can be used to address inefficient hybrid workplaces?
So this one kind of goes back, it's a good question. This one goes back pre-COVID, not post-COVID, pre-COVID. We had a customer of ours who's still a customer of ours and have been for a long time, and how it started with them pre-COVID is they were being told that the floors that they had, and 2 floors in particular out of the 12 that they had, were really busy. So they weren't sure how busy it was, how efficient the floor was, were they at capacity, did they need to take another lease, did they need to take out a lease on another floor? So we put sensors in across the floors, we aggregated the data into the platform, and over time we could see what was happening day in and day out. It was a Monday to Friday office pre-COVID, but we saw that only only once in 3 months did they hit 71% capacity of both of those floors. And then the average was between 50 and 55. So before they had that data, it was a clipboard check every now and then. And because of who they were, they had to let everyone know, and then everyone would tell their teams to come in, so it looked really busy. But on average, the utilization was really very low. So having that data over 3 months, the workplace team and the building control team were able to say, do you know what? We've not had this data before. Not only do we not need to take a new floor, but we can load 33% more people onto this floor. And when we looked at the data and when we looked at people were on the floor, everyone actually sat on the side of the office that had great views out of the window and actually was the sunnier side of the office. So there was some really good feedback for them in that as well.
Lovely. Perfect. Thank you very much. I think we're going to carry with Harry's presentation just to make sure we finish on time, and then we come back to questions. Thanks for that, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. So what we'll do now is we'll talk through how Accenture, both internally and with clients, typically glue a lot of these solutions together. So you'll have heard some fantastic stuff from our colleagues and partners around effectively the front end and the back end of these systems. But what does that actually mean when we plug it into the real world, into a living, breathing enterprise? So a good way of looking at this, and what we've kind of termed intelligent workplace architecture, is we have to think about abstraction layers, which Appspace and Metrikus absolutely play in that domain. How do we interconnect these traditionally siloed and disparate systems into these aggregation and abstraction layers that we can then build rules engines around to ultimately give us these capabilities and all this fantastic stuff you've heard today, whether it's automated space reservation, occupancy analytics, air quality and reporting, enhanced employee experience, that can all be delivered. The limitation is not the technology. The limitation is really around the enterprise's willingness to change and transform. And what I mean by this is when we look at what drives employee experience in a business, the way we typically segment it in Accenture is by workplace, workspace, and workforce. And a better way of thinking about that is IT, HR, and real estate. And individually, those teams have gone and delivered fantastic programs of work, but they don't traditionally work together very well, which is really what's limiting that delivering a world-class employee experience to date. And what that really means is we need to change the operating model, and we need to change the ways of thinking about how we implement, transform, and support these systems. So a really great example that we see with multiple clients is we'll implement, say, really advanced AV tech in a meeting room, IoT sensors, the smart space reservation system, and that's great. But when it comes time to support it, who's really going to own that? Is it real estate and facilities? Is it IT or workplace? Does HR have a role in this? And that's where we're going ultimately, is we're seeing the transformation from these individual siloed teams of HR, IT, and real estate into what we call kind of experience management offices. And what those are dedicated for in an organization, or something work we've done internally to Accenture that's really been pivotal to our transformation, has been putting that organization into effect. And what that allows us to do is implement these systems and have subject matter experts who can support this both remote and in the office to deliver a world-class experience. So anecdotally, how we do this in One Manhattan West is we have our experience ambassadors who are trained across kind of the full gamut of technologies, whether it's IoT and networks, understanding the space reservation system, the Microsoft Teams room in the meeting rooms. And because they understand how all this is so closely connected and interwoven, when issues inevitably arise, they can actually troubleshoot that quickly and get people back up and running as soon as possible. So I definitely encourage people to think more about how do we build a support architecture around these kind of future ways of working. Moving forward to kind of the following slide, I think where we're going with this, and this is a bit of a double click into what we've just shown, is we have to consider everything in totality. So as we build these systems, we have to think, okay, which team is going to support it? Which team is going to build these rules? What do we want the rules to be? How do we measure if the rules are working? Do we need to A/B test? So it's not just about purchasing X product and installing to get Y result. It's really about how do I take these cutting edge systems and build them into an organizational fabric ultimately that lets me deliver what I want. And it's the ability to click and choose, because some use cases may be applicable today, others may be applicable in 1, 2, 3 years time. And the key thing is to orient around what we call the user propositions. So ultimately everything from the colleagues, so let's say the end users in the building, the occupants, the business unit, which may be, for example, real estate or IT, and then down to the facilities management team that need to use it for operational purposes. How do we put these systems in place? How do we build business intelligence and effectively layers of dashboards that they can utilize to better manage the estate? And then over time, how do we enhance that to become what is a smart building, a truly automated building? And that's not just something you do overnight. That's a long-term 2, 3, 4-year journey to get to, but definitely where the industry is trending. So whilst there's no immediate answers here, it's more about, as you think about all the fantastic work Appspace, Metrikus, and Microsoft are doing, don't forget about your support architecture. Don't forget about how we need to build this into an organization and ultimately enhance over time. So it's not just about thinking in terms of product, it's thinking in terms of platform. And with that, I'll hand back over to Josh.
Okay, thank you very much, Harry. Lots to take in there. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. Let me take control first. Righty. Okay, so if you wanted to see a little bit more of Appspace, we got an up-and-coming webinar coming up. That's the IPTV and live streaming 101. It's talking a lot about digital signage here. That's February 28th, and you can go to our website, appspace.com/ and register for that webinar already. So thanks for all those great presentation, guys. Great content there. And yeah, we just discussed, a little tiny bit of what Appspace does here. We also have lots of other good solutions. So head over to our website, and by all means, if you need more demos from Appspace staff, we're always here to help you. So that's some of our other solutions, and then let's quickly go to Q&A, see if we have any other questions coming in. I think I have some more from Metrikus. I think you've already covered this though, Michael. So the way companies currently use office space is kind of often inefficient and wasteful. How could real-time data and employee apps be used to change this in the future? I think you've. You're on mute. Sorry.
I think I did cover part of that off, but it is more and more it is becoming about data, and it kind of always has been, but I think more and more of it now is factual data to get real usage of floors. When you present data and you have the information, the business can't argue with that. When it used to be a clipboard and people were running around clicking to see how many people were in, that's a snapshot in time. But when you've got that over a period of time, like Harry was talking about, none of this is an overnight quick win. Some of it can be, like indoor air quality, knowing whether it's good or bad. You can see that in the first few days, but understanding how your floors, your buildings, your meeting rooms, your collaboration spaces are being used is an overtime piece, but you need continuous data to make informed decisions about all of this. So the more of that you have, the more informed decisions you can make, and the more you can understand how people are using your space, which rooms are better than others. Is it the ones with the Teams rooms in and a whiteboard? That gets booked all the time, whether it's a 6-person, a 4-person, or an 8-person. That gets booked a lot more than one that just has a video conferencing room or just a whiteboard in it. So all of this information helps you make much more informed decisions and business choices.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. And then a question we have, this is for you, I think, Sindhu. Is there any clarity on what part Microsoft Places could play in this partnership?
Yeah, it's still early days. So for those who don't know, Microsoft made an announcement a few months ago introducing Microsoft Places, which is our new connected workplace platform. And in terms of the partnership, we do recognize that, this can't be done alone, and we are partnering with various ISVs across the segment, whether it's on experience, platform, infrastructure, environment, and Appspace is one of the named partners of Microsoft Places. So that is all we can share at this stage. More will be yet to come. So yeah, stay tuned for more announcements in this place. I don't know, Thomas, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
I think it will provide a lot more capabilities, AI capabilities to users. So for example, if Josh and I are meeting every Monday on a Microsoft Teams meeting, and Appspace, and Josh has made a reservation in Appspace to come in the Tampa office, and I am going to be in the office, then the app should be able to reach out to you proactively and say, hey, why don't you meet in person instead of meeting over Teams? I think the ultimate goal for any successful hybrid workplace is bringing people back together in person. And what Microsoft Teams and Places will be able to do, combined with Appspace and Metrikus, is really delivering that kind of proactive AI experiences where you're bringing people back together.
Yeah. Thanks, Sindhu. Just seeing you've just dropped the blog into the chat also, Microsoft Places, in case anyone wants to read that. There is another question from John. I don't know if, yeah, it's another Microsoft question to do with Cisco. So what is the timeline with MS integration with Cisco devices? I don't know if that's Sindhu or Thomas.
I don't have information on that, I'm afraid, at this stage.
So Cisco has announced they now support MTR on Cisco devices. So I don't know if that's the question, but that's available today.
I think what I'll do, I'll get someone from our team to get John the answer to that. So not a problem. I have Hector making a comment. Is it in beta? I presume that is to do with Microsoft Places there, Hector.
I think that might be the Cisco Microsoft integration that is in beta.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, there's no other questions. He's talking about Cisco and MS Microsoft. Okay. And we have no other questions. So that's it for today. So yeah, thanks again to all our speakers, Sindhu, Harry, Michael, Thomas. I have to remember all those names. It is Valentine's, of course, so we're going to give you back 10 minutes to run off and get your Valentine's cards or dinners or buy gifts for loved ones or partners. So thanks everyone for joining this one, and we hope to see you in the next webinar coming up on February 28th. Bye from the Appspace team and everyone else on this webinar. Thanks for joining.